Well now. This is just going to be, I'm just going to do, I don't know how many. I think there might be like 25 to 30 images in the folder that I pre-selected or created. And just now I'm drinking like Glühwein, but I also added my own spices and a bit of fresh ginger. And that is something that certainly warms the heart, if you want to call it that. And it raises your inner fire, such as breathing. But what I've realized is that as long as you are somewhat heavy with too much fear or too many emotions in general, breathing is quite an intense experience. And that means like continuously breathing into your stomach and out of your stomach. And if somebody ever has heard the term holotrophic breathing, that's something where you breathe deeply into your stomach and out of it, like really rapid, like usually to the rhythm of music or people using instruments or something, like rattles and such, like right? And you breathe in that rhythm until you get to a kind of state which I would describe as fearlessness. Because I believe what this continuous breathing does is it stirs up all kinds of emotions. But instead of just sitting around feeling terrible about yourself, you just stir them up. Right? And you stir them up until they leave you. And when all of these emotions that have been in your stomach for a while, that makes you feel sick, that makes you overeat, when all of these emotions have been released, you get into a place where there's just nothing going on. And suddenly you come back to your senses, because just for a moment you let go and you allowed yourself to distance yourself from that fear. And usually how this is done is in group sessions. Usually you don't do this just alone at home. You certainly can, but I have to say, in my own way of experiencing it, I was guided through it. So every time, because maybe you stop breathing or you start kind of falling asleep, and then somebody comes and taps you on the shoulder, and that's the signal, okay, I must continue breathing. And I probably was breathing for 2 hours like this, and then whoosh, I was gone. And then it took some time until I came back to myself. And that's, of course, an experience which is quite intense. For the most part, because except for breathing, you don't really know what is going on. You're just breathing, and suddenly you're like, boom, gone. Or that's how it feels like, and then suddenly you're back. Like you just fell asleep, but it's weird, it's like different. And the way I could describe this is by saying that there were parts in you that were afraid because of certain experiences. You may call them traumatic, but whatever that means, right? I don't want to demonize experience and call them traumatic and say, they were so bad, because that's just a way of clinging to them. But that's what we often do, somebody screamed at us and that was so mean, somebody told us we were an asshole. Well, maybe you were, but that was so awful and that's why I hate that guy. No. You just have a problem loving yourself. And that's why, it struck right home. It struck right home. It was like a fist in the face. I fucking hate your guts. Oh no, he doesn't love me. Well, a reason for you to start loving yourself more. And that's again where you get to the point where you say, other people cannot tell you who you are, but in a way they can, by understanding how other people make you feel, or how some people look at you, or treat you, or always come back to you no matter what you do. But in the end, it's up to you to make decisions, blah, blah, blah. That's not, this is more what I talk about in my podcast, which would cost you, of course, 11 euros a month. But you would also have a guaranteed, right? Now I'm sounding desperate, 4 episodes per month. It's like, wow. I mean, if there's 4 Thursday, every Thursday there's a new episode. I've already recorded them. That's it. So the entire year of 2023 is already recorded. And because, think about it, it's like 52 episodes just for next year. And there are already more than 100 episodes in there. And that's like hours of talking. Each episode is usually at least an hour. Some more, some a bit less. And I just realized, how much work I put into this. So I said, you know what? If people don't want to pay for it, then they better find something else to listen to. Because I was in the position of continuously asking people, hey, even if it was just 10 people, I don't know, the statistics are a bit weird. But I knew that people were listening to my episodes, and I asked them, listen, if you just want to send me 5 euros, whatever, just think about how much money you want to send me. Nobody sent me anything. Once one person sent me money, and that was somebody I knew. And when I thanked him for it, I don't know, he never said anything. So I don't know if I'm intimidating or something. But I asked people over and over again, and they would not give me anything. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to move my entire show to Patreon, where I'm going to make sure that whoever wants to listen to this is going to pay for it. And if they don't want to listen to it, then that's fine. But I also have to make a living. And I can be very selfless and give lots of stuff to people. But in the end, nothing's going to happen. So when I look at that image, a certain experience comes to mind, but also an image of myself. An image of me being like a big fat kraken that is, trying to catch people with its tentacles, to lure them into his space so they can spend time there. That's partly true. But also because I know that I have created a space with so much content, to free the mind. Like, it's insane. People are not running in my doors at this very moment. Right? And maybe they are. Maybe I just don't get it. Or maybe all the numbers on all these platforms are just fake. Maybe that's just my consciousness, It's like whoosh, shifting everything around according to my own belief system. Saying, you can't be famous already, Nobody knows you is often what comes into my mind. But I think, people are just really afraid of everything, especially of themselves. And now I wanted to, when I saw this image, there came a very specific experience to my mind. But I feel like I don't really want to talk about it. Because that's the other part. I mean, I've been giving so much to people for free to do something with it. And if you never get anything back, you kind of get selfish and angry. And you say, you know, I don't want to give anymore. Why should I give people anything? You know, there's like 119 stories on Medium where I talk about things. You know, it's just like short stories maybe. You can go and read these and just see what they do for you. Because these hold often a lot of wisdom. Some of them are kind of funny. Some of them may be sad or something. You know, I don't know. But it's for you to work on these things with your emotions. And I think what this Kraken also shows me is, you know, I'm quite colorful. You know, you cannot pin me down just to being a podcaster. You know, you cannot pin me down to anything because, you know, I just do whatever I do when I feel like it. But I also allow myself to do these things because I work through the anxiety. So when I have a vision of something that I might be doing, and I also, a part of me feels like doing it, I consult with myself. I spend time with the idea first. You know, and then I say, I don't want to do it, right? That's usually how it goes. First I think, wow, that's so awesome, you know, I want to do that. And then I say, I don't want to do it anymore. You know, and then I leave it at that. I leave it at this, I don't want to do it anymore. Until, you know, but secretly, I'm still working towards doing it anyway. And that's, you could call it my reluctance to give in, or you could call it my stubbornness. You know, I call it, I don't know, just letting it happen. Because sometimes you maybe find yourself in a relationship. And at first you're like, oh, you know, I love you so much, I can't live without you. And then it's suddenly like, I hate you. Right? Some people are like that. And I'm like that, you know. I just keep jumping from love to hate all the time. But I'm trying to just stay in a place of love as much as I can. And that's the challenge. And that's why diet and making experiences are so important, because now I'm going to get down to business. Because when you look at this experience, you know, I did a diving course in 2012 or something. And then I went diving in Jordan. And it was like a extended diving course where you did like deep water diving, which was to 40 meters, which to me is already quite deep. You know, and also using a compass while diving, you know, all kinds of things. And we also had the chance to do a night dive. And that is one very extraordinary experience that I've had. And the way it happened was, we were, you know, I believe that was indeed in Jordan. So we were in Jordan, and like in Aqaba, the city is called. And we did this night dive. And of course you're afraid of all kinds of things, but we had flashlights or torches. And we had all our equipment. And so you go on a boat in the dark. You know, and then how you do it, like backwards, you let yourself fall into darkness. And how I often had it in the beginning, that is, first of all, I was kind of stressed. And it also stressed me in the beginning because, I wasn't really sure of of my own buoyancy. But something that diving taught me was to keep my buoyance. I would use the jacket inflator and I would fill the jacket with enough air so that it keeps me at a certain height. But then I realize whenever I breathe in, I float more upwards. And when I breathe out, I float more downwards. And that's how I learned to adjust, because not everybody learned or managed to do this. I've met people who claim that they can dive, but they can't really. They just, they reach the ground and then they paddle a lot with their flippers and then there's a lot of dust and then nobody sees shit anymore. But the way I've learned diving, for some reason, because maybe I've just been more adept or more conscious or, I don't know, more skilled or more open to learning or more aware of what I'm doing. Because at that time, I would say, I wasn't very conscious of anything. But there were certain things I was quite skilled at, or at least willing to learn. And diving certainly interested me, so I also did maybe like 60 dives, which is, on my account, quite a lot. And I did it in a more or less short period, and it taught me how to dive very well, so that now I know if I would go diving again, I would know how to do it. Anyway, what I really liked about diving was the silence. To be underwater, everything's kind of muffled, and sometimes you have this moment where you only hear your own breathing. And that's basically one of the moments that taught me how meditation feels like. To think of nothing else, to be in a place where for a moment maybe all your desires are met. You don't wish for anything, you just are happy breathing and floating about. Anyway, so I learned to inflate my jacket with just enough air, and then I would learn to micromanage my position in the water through breathing. So sometimes I would practice, going above ground, like the bottom, and then I would just dive like quite calmly. And then I would exhale, and I would float down closer to the ground, and just before touching it, I would breathe in again and do a move like in Mission Impossible. Just above the ground, I would stop and then I would slowly start to float up again. And I would keep doing that. And in this way, which not everybody does, I practiced diving. And I got quite good at it. Anyway, and so we did a night dive, and that was certainly a very nice experience, because I remember that maybe that one was, maybe I'm mixing together different night dives, but I can just generally talk about night dives. You go in the water, it's all dark, and then you submerge, and once you're underwater, suddenly, to me, it was always, it's less scary because you see what's going on. Unless you're in some kind of dirty lake or something. If you're somewhere in the ocean, usually, not usually, sometimes you have quite good sight. And so you can kind of see what's going on, which might not help you. I don't know, if you're shitting your pants because there's some kind of big animal, but, I never had such experiences. So it also, of course, depends on where you dive. I practiced diving first in lakes in Germany, and then I went to that little slip of the Red Sea in Jordan, where there's almost no big animals. Because, there's no sharks and there's no whales or anything, so it's like a quite safe place to dive, and it's quite clear also, the water. Anyway, so we did that night dive, and I remember this one scene. I just want to tell that first, where there was one group of divers. I don't know how far it was, right? Let's say 50 meters ahead. And you could see them with their torches lighting up, shooting everywhere, looking for things, because that's what you want, right? You're out there to look for things you maybe usually don't see during the day. And also, when they hit the ground, it looked like, a completely different kind of space. And because everything was dark except for their torches, it had quite a nice effect of illuminating the scene. And so as I was watching them, you kind of kept diving, and I remember that was certainly in Jordan. We did a night dive, and there was a cuttlefish. And our driving instructor, he was somewhat, I don't know, I felt he was very disrespectful to the cuttlefish, because he pinned it down with his torch to force it into place, and it would give off all kinds of like patterns of light, like, that's what they do in danger or whatever. I mean, it looked amazing. I mean, you call this bioluminescence, whatever that means. It's like, to me, it's like energy, right? And emotion also. I mean, that's how they show emotion, and humans do the same. When you're happy, you shine. When you're in a bad mood, you're like, rah. So humans do it, just nobody realizes it, because we're always so focused on words. We're always so focused on words. And that's why that was also one of my goals, to rid myself of this trap of clinging to words to express myself. And that's why this image to me is just an expression of, I'm like everything, anything I want to be, right? Maybe I have an idea once and I think, nah, it's like with threesomes or orgies. I've looked at these things. I've thought about these things. I don't want to do it. Because the only people who do these things, to me, they're just fucking disgusting. I just want to tell this story, and it just makes me nauseous just thinking about it. There's this German group of people who started making porn. And I don't want to call the name, but they're just like, I don't know, they do all kinds of stuff. And there's this one video, it's so fucking disgusting, but just an image, how you can work with porn. Because you have to consider that all these people, they're just fucking with everybody. They're as unclean as you can be. Yeah? Because if you take up a lot of the shit from other people through your sexual organ, it's gonna pile up. And when you don't have sex, you want to have sex again because, you don't take responsibility for all this shit that you're piling up in yourself. You're trying to fill your hole with the means of other people's penises or vaginas or whatever. That's what you're trying to do. People who go to orgies or do these kinds of things, threesomes, they just lost it. They lost themselves in the idea that sexuality is the solution. No, sexuality is a means to connect with each other, to create life and to heal emotionally, to feel safe in the space of another person. That's what sexuality is about. To let go. And for that, I believe it's essential that you're only with two people because, take it or leave it, I only have one penis. And a woman only has one vagina because an anus is for defecating. And a vagina is for, for a penis and giving birth, right? And so, right, if you think about it in this way, and anyway, I just want to tell this because it's just, I would never touch that woman. She was so disgusting. I mean, of course, she was looking for love in a way, but actually not. And there's this image where they are doing like oral sex introduction course or something, right? Where they teach people practices of oral sex. And there's this one young woman. She's sitting on a couch like some kind of macho. And her legs are spread so you can openly see her sexual parts, her vagina. And then this woman comes, the instructor, and wants to show, how it's done, right? How you go down on a woman. And before she's going down on her, she's talking about it. And you can see the face of that woman sitting on the couch in the background. And you can literally see how greedy she is. She's like, just fucking do it. Come on, do it, right? And at the same time, there's this instructor talking about it. But you can literally see what this woman in the back is feeling and thinking. And I had this image of a very dirty person. And not dirty in the sense that, oh yeah, I'd love to sleep with her. But more like, holy shit, she's full with shit. She needs to work out some of her driving forces in her life. Because if she doesn't, she'll surely catch some kind of sexually transmitted disease. Which in my case, the way I understand it, if you have too much sex, you're piling up energy from other people. By mixing your energy with other people, you become like a cocktail of emotions and whatever. Yeah, at one point you might just call it syphilis. I don't think people catch syphilis if they're just in a relationship and only have sex with one person. Unless that person already had it, it's very unlikely anyone is going to catch that. And I just thought, these people don't use condoms. Because everybody takes the pill, so everybody just loads their shit into each other. And I just saw that, and this was so repulsive. So yeah. It's just about who you're going to invite into your space. Because that cuttlefish certainly did not invite the diving instructor into its space. No, he just forced himself in there and pinned it down. And that's how some men are, of course. So maybe a cuttlefish is a bad example because it's quite small. But also like a kraken or something, right? These animals are quite vicious. These animals are quite vicious and they have, right, like tentacles and stuff. So they're gonna defend themselves. So, yeah, you can flash your colors without words, just by sending people vibes. And, you just let them fill out the blanks with their own fear and anxiety. Because if you don't talk to people, if you remain silent, you say nothing, people are going to shit their pants. I don't know what oversharing means, by the way, but I have the feeling the reason why people don't listen really to what I say is because I'm oversharing. But I can't help it. If you don't like it anymore, you just have to skip a beat or whatever. Do something else, because whatever means oversharing. I cannot overshare. Well, I can. And once I start talking, I just want to talk. I wanted to keep these short, by the way.